Once upon a time, the infamous rover Reynardo plundered the floating isles. Then his mother called him to her deathbed. "Swear to me that you won't die on the gallows," she rasped. Reluctantly, he swore. And he whiled away his days at home with music, cards, and wine.
Stories, The Path of Destinies, follows Reynardo the Fox as he finds himself sucked into the rebellion against an evil Toad Emperor. Now things aren't going well for the rebellion, and with the final battle approaching, it's going to be up to Reynardo to make decisions that will greatly impact how the final conflict will play out. And he'll do this with the help of a special book that allows its holder to go back in time and learn from prior mistakes. The Path of Destinies works like a choose-your-own-adventure book, and across 5 chapters, you'll be presented with 4 key branching points. Now at the start, Reynardo is presented with 3 options, with every subsequent junction point offering 2 specific choices. Now, these paths continue to branch into a variety of different stories that ultimately lead to 24 endings that will provide the knowledge needed to unlock the true end. Now each of the 24 routes that you take ultimately lead to a bad end for Reynardo, but what's important is the information that's learned in each story. For instance, one route might reveal a traitor, and another might demonstrate just how deadly a certain artifact might be. It's in these moments that truths are learned that are necessary in making the correct choices that will lead to the game's true end.
He'd made bad choices. But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice.
At its core, this is a pretty simple hack and slash game, with a focus on counters that provides a pretty similar feel to the Batman Arkham series. In addition to basic attacks, Reynardo can spend skill points to upgrade abilities, and even forge new types of weapons by using resources you'll find in the environment. Using Reynardo's hookshot to pull enemies close, throwing enemies off a ledge, and stringing together counters to build your combo feels really great. At the same time, the game is hardly challenging, and it really doesn't take long to become overpowered. I never really found a reason to use different weapon types or special abilities because I didn't really need to. Even the stronger enemies quickly become pushovers, which makes the character progression and weapon crafting feel a little meaningless. Outside of combat, the stages have plenty of secondary routes and hidden areas with plenty of loot to find. This is really important when you consider just how many times you're going to replay the same stages on the route to the true end. There's absolutely a feeling of repetition that creeps in, but I felt like Spearhead Games handled this issue pretty well. The narrator has enough lines that it's rare to hear him say the same thing twice. Alternate routes allow levels to mix things up, and doors that require specific types of weapons to unlock allows for even more new areas to open up with every playthrough. It's not perfect, and I'll get to that soon, but there are enough changes that make at least the first handful of playthroughs feel pretty distinct. It didn't take very long into my second playthrough to see how the story would build from one route to the next. The knowledge I learned from each route played into the story, it delivered new context for each scene, and oftentimes influenced specific choices that I'd make. This works really well for a choose-your-own-adventure conceit. It makes the overall story a lot more interesting. Unfortunately, with only 4 truths to learn, the game doesn't really make it worth your while to seek out all 24 endings. Every route fits into one of 4 truths, and those truths offer endings that are pretty different. But the group of endings that are tied into each truth offer stories that are only slightly different. There's no epilogue or anything for seeing every route, and so going after every last choice just kind of felt like a waste. And that's especially when you consider just how similar some of those endings felt, and the amount of repetition that comes along with playing through the story 25 times. Needless to say, I kinda wish there was something there for people who did seek out all of the different routes. That said, I totally recommend setting aside the 5 hours it'll take to unlock the 4 truths and seek out the true ending. The narrative and how it's told is really interesting, and it's absolutely worth seeing.
Of course he felt alone, but he had done the right thing. It had been hard to do, but there was no better feeling than that. Zenobia would be so proud of him.